Hi, this is a new little surprise thing I'm doing called Armchair Mysteries because I've been reading Terry Deary's book, Top Mystery Stories, and I thought I'd share one that intrigued me, and then if you like it, you can go ahead and get the book and find out some more mysteries. Now, the great thing about these mysteries is they're based on true stories, and the great thing is they don't really give you the solution. They give you an idea of a solution, but they don't give you the solution. So you can work it out and leave comments down below if you think you can solve the mystery. Well, this is a story about Alice Greaves, and it's set in 1889 in Paris. Now, Alice Greaves and her mum went over to India to actually see their father that had a tea plantation in India. And they spent a lovely long holiday there to avoid the English winter. And when it was time to go home, they decided to go home via Paris because her mother actually wasn't feeling all that well. And they thought that maybe if they broke up the journey and she had maybe a few nights sleep in a Paris hotel and had some good food and things like that, that she would start to feel a little better. So that's all fine. Alice is quite anxious to get her mother to the hotel. They arrive about 5:30 in the afternoon. They enter the hotel. They're given 2 rooms, and her mother's room is 255. So the mother goes to bed quite early, and when Alice actually goes to check on her about an hour later, she finds that she's really deteriorated and she gets very concerned. So she decides to go down to the front desk and see if there's any doctor that they could get. So she goes down to reception, and sure enough, there is an in-house doctor called Dr. Rial. Now, Dr. Rial follows Alice back up to the room and examines her mother, and she can see that he looks really quite concerned. Anyway, he starts to write something down on his prescription pad, and he says to Alice to go immediately and go and get this medicine. Now, Alice is a bit worried because she doesn't know Paris, and she sort of can't work out why maybe a porter couldn't go and get it, but she doesn't want to argue, doesn't want to cause a fuss, doesn't want to delay, and so she puts on her cape and decides to head out. Well, after quite a long while, she manages to find this chemist that is quite a long way away from the hotel. And the chemist takes about 2 hours to make up this concoction that Dr. Rial said was so important. Alice makes her way back to the hotel, and she goes to the front desk to get the key to 255 so she doesn't have to disturb her mother to get in the room. She's assuming that the doctor may still be there, but she wasn't sure. And she heads up to the room and she opens up the door and she goes in, and there's no mother. There's no one in the room. Her mother's bags are gone. There's no trace of her mother. So she thinks, oh my goodness. And she thought, oh, well, maybe they might have gone into my room. Maybe something might have happened. So she checks her room. Her bags are there. Everything is as she left it. So she quickly goes down the stairs, back down to reception, says, was my mother taken to hospital? What's happened to my mother? Where's Dr. Rial? And the man at the desk sort of looks at her a bit confused and says, your mother? What are you talking about, mademoiselle? Your mother? You arrived by yourself this afternoon. And she said, oh, don't be ridiculous. You just mustn't have seen my mother. My mother came with me. I had the room next to hers. My mother's room was 255, and she goes through all the explanation. And the desk clerk's just saying, I don't know what you're talking about, madam, you know. So she thinks, look, I'm getting nowhere. She thinks it's sort of a translation problem. She doesn't speak French very well, and the guy at the desk doesn't speak any English really. And so she thinks, look, we're getting lost in translation here. So she thinks, I'll go to the British Embassy and I'll try and get some help, and they'll be able to tell me the likely hospital that my mother may have been carted off to with Dr. Rial. So she heads to the British Embassy, and when she gets there, the British ambassador is about to leave for a dinner with the French president and refuses to see her. But Alice Greaves is so distraught, she barges her way in and says, you must see me. I'm a British citizen. I hold a British passport. You represent Queen Victoria, and you must see me, and you must help her citizens. Well, The British ambassador was having none of it and just fobbed her off onto his assistant, Andrew Bentley, and gaily went off out to dinner with the French president. Now, Alice Greaves is getting really distraught at this point. And so Andrew Bentley brings her a glass of water and proceeds to encourage her to tell the tale. And he says, look, we'll go back together to the hotel. I speak fluent French. We'll be able to get to the bottom of this. So when they get back to the hotel, no sooner do they walk in the lobby door where Alice spies Dr. Royale sitting in one of the chairs in the lobbies. And she runs up to him and says, Dr. Royale, where's my mother? And Dr. Royale looks up at her and says, I'm sorry, mademoiselle, I don't know what you're referring to, you know. And she said, you sent me to get a prescription, look. And she pulled out the prescription that she'd handed the chemist, that he'd handed back with medicine. And Dr. Royale looks at the prescription and says, I'm sorry, mademoiselle, that is not my handwriting, that is not my prescription. And she insists that he did write the prescription. And then he opens up a book that's on his lap and says, look, mademoiselle, my writing is completely different. And he shows a name and address in the front of the book he's reading. He said, that is my writing, that is not my writing. Well, by this stage, Alice is distraught and she just falls to the floor sobbing. So Andrew Bentley insists that he goes up to 255 and checks with her. He says, come on, let's go and see what we can find. Maybe you've got the wrong doctor. Maybe you think that was the doctor. You know, he didn't know how to explain any of this. So they get up into the room, and then when they open the door, Alice Greaves collapses again. Because not only is her mother not there, not only is her mother's luggage completely missing, but the curtain colours change and the coverlet on the bed has changed. They were red and now they're blue. So in the time she went to, hustle up the British ambassador, the curtains had changed. And she just starts to get just so hysterical that Andrew Bentley has to call Dr. Royale from the lobby to come up and give her a sedative because she is completely hysterical. Now, the sedative takes hold and Dr. Royale assures Andrew Bentley that they'll just put her into bed in her room and that Andrew Bentley can come back and see her the next day. But they don't. They strap her to a gurney, they take her by horse-drawn ambulance down to the dock, and they send her on a boat accompanied by health officials to England. And once they get to England, they hand her over to English health authorities, insisting that she is a lunatic, telling them that she is imagining a mother that doesn't exist. So when Alice Greaves wakes up from her sedative, the first thing out of her mouth is, where's my mother, where's my mother? Hysteria and upset and the whole thing. And the English health authorities throw her into a lunatic asylum. And Alice Greaves never got out of the lunatic asylum. To the day she died, she insisted that her mother existed, and so they kept insisting that she was a lunatic. Now, that mystery has never been solved, and Terry Deary points out that a few people since then have tried to, concoct some sort of reasonable explanation for all of this happening. He said all they could come up with was maybe the mother had some sort of plague, that the hotel was scared that if word got out, they would have to close down the hotel, they would lose all the guests, maybe the hotel would be boarded up and quarantine would ensure. Maybe the mother was wrapped up, maybe she died and she was wrapped up in the coverlet that was on the bed and that the curtains were pulled down to add to that sort of security of that covering before they sort of whisked her away from the hotel. They don't know. It was never solved, but it is a true account of a true story. So if you can think of any other reasonable explanation, please solve the mystery by leaving your comment down below. And I'll see you again with another tale very soon. Bye.